reason to exclude the book, to ban the book, was for it might encourage assimilation. And this is something that we can look into, because the term assimilation is imported from diaspora. This is not a term that can be used when you have sovereignty. The Haribon.
Certainly, the sovereign. And to an extent, that was one of the things which was fascinating about your book, was that this is an Israeli woman in New York who is going through the questions that a diaspora Jew tends to go through when he or she is living in the diaspora. And at some point we might bring up quotations where she asks herself, can she possibly, how difficult it will be not to fall in love with him. How impossible, I thought worriedly, how tricky to insist on not falling in love, to make my heart forget this strange, gentle man and this exciting night, to not get swept away. On the brink of sleep, enveloped in his breath, I thought how dangerous and complicated it would be, and how if I wasn't careful, I might fall in love with him right at that very moment. And you know, she does.
And also your attitude to national identity is very, very honest, with a lot of, dignity. It's like, it's not just, okay, I fall in love, so you choose.
She suffers, the character suffers.
Yes,
a lot. As Chayuta said in that interview that I heard about later, and I listened to it in delay, was that it's more Zionist than anything else, that the loyalty that my character feels for her family, immediate family, and the Israeli family, the Jewish family that she goes back to, is stronger and more demanding within the struggle she goes through, that she turns her back to the love that she experienced very deeply, very overwhelming kind of love. But she chooses Zionism over love, which is something that I was given criticism from the right and the left. Yes, I was condemned that this book wasn't. It was too conservative, that it was too Zionist from the left, and then as the interviewer in The Guardian said to me that I'm confusing The Guardian's audience, because from one hand, the Ministry of Education minister is banning my book, and on the other hand, you witness yourself to be a committed Zionist, and this is sound as a contradiction.
There's a line which my boss and colleague Johnny Ariel often mentions to me. It doesn't matter which group you're a member of, so long as you're ashamed of it. So the question to you, Chayuta, and you can answer as yourself or as the characters in the book, what group are you a member of, and what is it that you're ashamed of about your group?
If I can answer in the name of my character, Uzziah, she would say, my group of people, the people I belong to, make too much noise. I want quiet. I want quietness, quiet. I want quiet. And I'm part of, now I speak as myself, I concern myself as one of the modern Orthodoxy society in Israel. Orthodoxy Kolech, maybe you hear about Kolech, the Orthodoxy feminism group, feministic group. So we have our own, we try to find balance between, all the sources, all the voices, the akachot.
Powers, forces.
The traditional one, the modern one. Also, I live in Gush Etzion, so it means I'm part of the settlement, המתנחלים, the way you call them.
The settlers.
Settlers, yes, in Judea and Sumron.
Judea and Samaria,
Samaria, yes.
West Bank,
Okay,
Greater
West
Israel.
Bank. I live Gush Etzion,
However you
15
wanna
or
describe
20
it.
minutes from Jerusalem. I live on the mountain. So my group of people, if we speak about that part, is sometimes what I'm ashamed of. Sometimes they look very threatened from the Arabs, from the left wings party, people, knife attacks, people I know were killed. So people are threatened very much, and I think I'm trying to think what would they think about your book, for example, and I don't like not being accepted. I mean, I don't like the fact that they. Okay.
Things closed down.
Yes, they shut down. This is the word.
And Dorit? First of all, you got to, I guess, define what your group, what group you are, a member of which you are ashamed.
Oh, we get to relate to so many circles, but I would choose the obvious, which is the opposite to Chayuta's. All the interviewers, they were coming up and saying, what about Israel democracy? You know? And they were expecting, let's say, we do have some colleagues that would have taken pleasure out of this scandal by announcing the declaration much more, they would take much more pleasure out of this craziness.
What pleasure in saying Israel is now a fascist dictatorship?
And this is an apartheid country, and this is the state of destruction, and all our values, they go down the drain. And listen, the foundation of Israel democracy is too profound. And what happened maybe with this tiny example of my book, this marching towards the bookshops and reclaiming the Israel freedom of speech by buying the book, by saying, I buy this book because it cannot be that the people of books, the book of books, would ban a book. So this is more to do with the neighborhood that we live among. This is more something that a regime that is next to us or would do, banning a book, not us. But this is something that I can say about my tribe. We live in a tribal country. We live in a tribal society. This another thing that reflects maybe a global climate of tribes, of extremers. And Israel is not immune to this climate, to this atmosphere of...
President Rivlin recently gave a speech in Herzliya where he defined that Israel is broken down into 4 tribes. And this was his language, that he talked about the religious, the modern Orthodox, the Haredi ultra-Orthodox, the Arabs, and the rest. And the reason he defined it that way was that there are 4 separate education systems for these 4 tribes. Not that he necessarily defined this as a problem, but as a description of Israel.
Quite realistic. And the camp, let's say the tribe I'm referring myself to, is the left-wing one, which is more to the center, depends of how tuned you are with this range. And the way I feel sometimes is embarrassed towards the extremers within my camp, with the way they shut down, with the way they're narrow-minded, with the way they refuse to be more flexible, be more practical, be more earthy, to live your principle at home and confront with a flesh and blood reality, with what would do good for next generations to happen, even if it's not as polished, as elegant, as precise as you expected it to be more realistic, because principles, they're good for, for conventions.
I'm trying to describe in my book the different group, the different not only political but
Spiritual, even.
yes. There is the religious group who's very, very halachic, very, the Jewish law. There is the more open one who believes more in the legend, in the stories, in the Agadah. I also show in the book that this way might be dangerous. I mean, I hope I tried to, I hope I succeeded to show that it's both dangerous and full of hope and for the future. Those materials, those חומרים האלה של not only halacha, not only the strict rules. Okay.
No, what I wanted to do, I actually wanted to help you with your own words, which you wrote, and then you can expand further. This is right near the end of the book, almost in an appendix. Uzziah is granted time to think, and she says this. So she's talking about Zionism, about the move from living in the diaspora to living in Israel. And she says, lately, I've been thinking that's what God wanted. That we dismantle the exile, that we come to Israel, that we fight, and then make up. Neither side will actually win. And the person born out of this great argument will be more whole, balanced, not full of pedantry and exactitude that negates heart and conscience, and not flung wide open to any spirit or urge with neither law nor tradition. A beautiful hybrid. If only I could give you a hybrid child like that. Would you want me to? Some beautiful writing.
We did kept our borders for 2,000 years when we lived among cultures and languages and religions different than us. The walls of the ghetto were very clear, were very stable. And once we get back to our homeland, once we get back to our father's land, we in a way let go of this wisdom of nivdalut. Nivdalut,
separation of difference. Separation.
Separation. It's not isolating yourself. It's because we separate. I take separation. We separate milk from meat. We separate the rest of the week to Shabbat, saint and secular, women and men. We do have this wisdom of separating because we were taught that we are separated from the other goyim, from the other nations. But here in Israel, we don't separate ourselves, we just rule. The separation, the wisdom of the boundaries, not boundaries, the wisdom of borders is not kept, is not implied.
So we'll end with this passage from Border Life, coming out sometime in the fall. I carefully extricate the remote control from Chilmi's fingers and press a button to banish the images. The screen turns off with a sizzling whisper and the room goes dark. I pull the blanket over his exposed knee, lean over and flutter a kiss on his forehead, and remember a hallucination I had one night. His murmuring voice faded away, and his face, hovering palely above me in the dark, gave way to my father's face. And for a moment, I was at home. Chilmi was there with me, and so were my sisters, and Micha, and the kids. And his whispers had turned into my father's soft, emotional voice as he blessed us, his daughters, before the meal on Friday night, with his hands on our heads. Yevarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May the Lord bless you and protect you. My mother stands behind him watching. Ye'er Adonai panav elech v'yichunech. May the Lord make his face shed light upon you and be gracious unto you. And I'm filled with yearning for that whispered benediction, for his caressing hands. I spread my own hands out over his sleeping head and gently bless him. Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'yasim lecha shalom. May the Lord lift up his face unto you and give you peace. May we all have peace and listening. Have a lovely day. Thank you to Chayuta and Dorit.
Thank you. Thank you.